Now let's get started. We are honored to have lead these discussions licensed attorney and professional fiduciary Darby Jones, a member of the Florida and Maryland Bar. Darby serves on the executive council of the Real Property Probate Trust Law section of the Florida Bar and is a registered professional guardian. Darby is also the founder and executive director of the Professional Fiduciary Council of Florida. Today, we're going to discuss the top 3 financial fears we hear from concerned seniors almost daily. Any guess as to what those fears are? Darby, clue us in and please help us address these fears so that we might sleep better tonight.
Well, I'm happy to do so. And I'm hoping that by the end of this hour, everybody is going to feel a little more comfortable. But first, I would really like to take a minute and thank the AARP of Florida. Honestly, we wouldn't be able to have these chats and me be able to share my experiences over the last, 30 years. So thank you, AARP of Florida, for making this happen. And our goal is to make this worthwhile, meaningful, interesting, and impactful. So during this and other Aging Academy sessions, feel free to ask questions or contact or email me or email Michelle and let us know how we're doing or if there are any topics or issues that you'd like for us to address in the future. So today, I'm hoping that a lot of you out there, I recognize a lot of names actually, a lot of you are probably getting pretty well equipped for handling some of the events and decisions that we're all going to have to face as we age. None of us have aged before, so it's all new to all of us, and we're walking through this together. So feel free again to, even today, we're going to talk about our 3, what I have discovered or have experienced over the last several decades, a common theme and 3 very consistent fears. So if you've been watching from the beginning, you're ready for this one. And we're going to start talking about these 3 fears. In my years, and I feel it's been a lot of years. When I start preparing for these things, I realize how long I've been doing this work, and it's incredible. But I originally started as an estate planning attorney. And after that, I became a trust officer with a bank. And I know most people don't really understand what trust officers are. And one day we may delve into that a little further. But suffice it to say that as a trust officer, you are intimately involved with a lot of family issues that involve not only their finances, but of course their estate plan and taking care of beneficiaries and stepping in the role as trustee. And in the last 14 years, I have been a professional fiduciary privately. And in that role, I have served in a multitude of roles as an agent under power of attorney, as a trustee, as a personal representative or executor of an estate, as a guardian over incapacitated wards, as court monitors, as special fiduciary, as in a variety of fiduciary capacities. But there were some themes that just were consistently an issue. So the first one that we're going to talk about is the fear of running out of money. As we age, I think that fear becomes pretty front and center for many people. And hopefully today I'm going to be able to put at least that fear, hopefully in all 3 of these fears, a little bit to rest. And if not to rest, at least to give you a strategy of how to handle these fears going forward, because probably many of you are already addressing this issue. And if not, you can start addressing this issue. The first thing I want to warn everybody about is, like every issue nowadays, it seems, the media really is good about scaring us about everything. And so the fear of running out of money is probably coming at you from a lot of directions. So my first advice is to try to turn that off and to try to focus just on your life and what your needs are and not be too scared or too provoked by what you might see in the media. Now, through the season of Aging Academy, we've touched on a lot of financial issues. We've talked about long-term care, when to get it, why to get it, if you should get it. We've talked about selecting the right investment relationship. Is your advisor a fiduciary? Is your advisor addressing your needs now? Because your life is different than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. So you may want to re-examine that relationship. We also talked about some financial products that you might be tempted to explore, such as reverse mortgages or annuities or whole life insurance. And again, these are all in past episodes, and I encourage you to go back and have a look at some of those. Another issue we covered was, can I afford to stay home? Do I go in a facility? Do I go in assisted living? Can I stay home? Should I downsize? What are the costs? And what are the comparisons of those two choices? All of those issues impact, obviously, your financial stability and whether you're going to run out of money. So if nothing else, kind of review those issues and put those to bed. And that way, that's one area of those are several areas of stress that you can kind of put to bed. We'll revisit some of those issues next year in our 2025 season, probably in a little more detail. And again, in response to some of your questions or concerns, we can revisit some of those topics. But for right now, let's talk about some things that you can do to help you not stress about the fear of running out of money. One of the first things I recommend is to build a team. Especially, and I say this very affectionately, for the orphaned adults in our audience, which there are many, which is nothing to be ashamed of or embarrassed about. It's just you're going to have a little bit of an extra task to building that team. You don't want to go into your older years alone, even though you might want to be alone from a social impact or you're an introvert. But from a practical standpoint, you do want to have a team around you. For example, you're going to want your agent under your power of attorney. Again, that's part of our estate planning session. Power of attorney is super important. If you have not addressed that concern in your life, that would be something, if nothing else, after today, a very high priority. It's one of the most, if not the most important estate planning document. You also want to have your person that's going to be able to serve as your healthcare surrogate. Now, very often it's going to be the same person. You're going to also need to think about who's going to be a trustee if you have a trust. Again, not all of you really need to have a trust, but if you do, you're going to need a trustee to serve in the event that you're unable to serve. You're also going to have, hopefully, a tax advisor in your life or a CPA, someone that is familiar with your tax or financial landscape. That's part of your team. Hopefully, you're going to have an attorney in your life, an estate planning attorney. Again, it's not an attorney you've got to visit on a regular basis, but it's certainly someone on your team. You're also going to have your financial advisor or investment advisor or trust officer or whoever it is that you work with regard to your finances, your budgeting, your tax planning. That person's a member of your team. And very often, as we get older and as we get not necessarily incompetent or incapacitated, but you may come to a point, hey, you know what? I wouldn't mind having someone come to my house once a week, twice a month, perhaps, help with grocery shopping, help with cleaning up around the house, changing those light bulbs, all the tasks that become a little more challenging as we get older. I'm going to call that person a caregiver. That person could be a professional caregiver, or it could be a neighbor. It could be a trusted friend or contact. That person is going to be a member of your team. You could also have a care manager involved, a little step up of a caregiver. But again, that person would be a member of your team. So think about all those names that I just recite it, and think about who is in those roles in your own life. And that should, I hope, give you some comfort because you really do have more of a team than perhaps you realize. Now, these aren't people you see every day. They're not people that you communicate on a regular basis, but they know you and they have a relationship with you, and that's important. And it's important to foster that relationship. Another item is to be familiar with your finances. And if possible, please put together a budget. We've all heard that. It's like flossing every day. Okay, we're supposed to floss every day. Don't tell my dentist, but I don't floss every day. I know I should. Budgets are kind of like that. You know, we're always supposed to have a budget. But at this time of our life and at this season of our life, it's going to become not necessarily important from a truly budgetary standpoint, but I think having a budget and having a good picture in your mind of where you're spending money and how much you're spending is going to bring you comfort. It's going to bring you some relief and comfort as to whether you're going to run out of money or not. The next thing is, and there's a resource, I believe, that's going to either be at the end or we can pop it up right here, but you want to know your life expectancy. Now, I know that's not a happy thought, but there is, the Social Security Administration has an actuarial or a life expectancy chart. Of course, it's not, 100%, but it's based on a heck of a lot of statistical information. You can put your age in there, male or female, and it will tell you statistically what your life expectancy will be. And that also, hopefully, will give you sort of a parameter or a box in which you can now sort of put your budget and put your finances and put your financial landscape on top of that life expectancy and put some numbers to it. And as a result, hopefully, some comfort. I'm going to go back to that member of your team called your financial advisor. And your financial advisor, and we covered this in our last episode, so I encourage you to go back and look at that. But your financial advisor, verify whether that person is actually a fiduciary and has your best interest, and that's a term of art, best interest in mind. The financial advisor you had 30, 40 years ago may have been appropriate, but now in this phase of life, it may not be. You may need someone that has more experience and more knowledge about how to handle the tax issues and the outflow of investments. Most of our life so far, we've been in sort of an accumulation phase. We worked, we had careers, we were amassing 401ks and IRAs and Roths and all that. And now we may be in sort of a utilization mode, and we may come to more of an outflow mode. So that financial advisor whose expertise or comfort zone is more in the accumulation phase may not be the right person for now our outflow stage. That outflow stage can have a lot of impact on your taxes, Medicare costs, your income tax situation as you pull from these retirement accounts. 40, 50 years ago, people didn't have the sizable retirement accounts that we do today. So that is really becoming quite a specialty and an expertise on how to manage those distributions and the use of whether you use your investments or versus your qualified accounts. So just rethink your financial relationship, and that in and of itself might give you a lot of comfort. They can also run what they call Monte Carlos, which is a program that they can put in the information about your particular portfolio, and it will address all the various circumstances that could happen in the world, from wars to inflation and recessions and so forth. And it will come out with a formula as to how long your investments will last. And that can also be quite a comfort. Now, keep in mind, while this isn't, I don't want this to be your saving grace, but for those who really are afraid and who may not have saved as much money as they perhaps should have, or just for whatever reason do not have the funds available, there is always Medicaid. Okay, Medicaid is available, not Medicare. I'm talking about Medicaid. So, worst case scenario, there is availability for long-term care costs to be covered by Medicaid. And my final point about running out of money is you're really going to be okay. You really are going to be okay. If you do these tasks that I've mentioned, which are really very much common sense, but it's just you need to pay attention to them and maybe make time to organize your thoughts around these, you're going to find out that you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. The next fear, second fear, is the fear of being a burden on your family or loved ones. Now, I have to be honest with you. I've sat across the table from, I can't even count how many clients. And so often, they'll like, Darby, you're great. I'm so happy to have you as my fiduciary. I feel so good. But if I ever get to that point, if I ever have Alzheimer's, if I ever don't have my wits about me, I don't want you to put me in one of those places I don't want to be around anymore. And I totally get it. I mean, we all feel the same way. But what's the reality of that? And I really don't have, I have a license to practice law, even though I don't practice anymore. And I am registered guardian, but I don't think I have the right to kill people. So I think we've got to really think that through, that fear of being a burden on other people or not being aware or able to enjoy your life as you envision it. So to address that fear, in fact, there was a previous episode that we called Whatever You Do, Don't Put Me in One of Those Places. And I think that will also help you understand from a statistical standpoint the likelihood of you falling into that situation. And that might help you feel less fearful. Also, the good news is as our population, our elder population, our older population grows in size and grows in longevity, our options are increasing. You know, a long time ago, I don't know how many of you had grandparents that were alive and went through maybe their stages of being in a nursing home, which is what we used to call them, which were very much like a hospital. Look at the difference today in just this short period of time, the options today that are available. We have assisted living, we have continuing care retirement communities, we have group homes, we have skilled care, we have rehab, we have in-home rehab, we have group homes, we have congregate living communities. We have tiny home communities. There's so many more options. We have granny sheds that you can put in your backyard. So there's so many more options today for addressing your needs and your potential needs to alleviate you being a burden on your family. So that should give you, hopefully, some comfort. I also want you to make sure we go back to that team that we talked about, where you have your power of attorney or your healthcare surrogate. I want you to talk to those people, and I want you to be honest with those people. I want you to tell them what your goals are, what your fears are, what you don't want to have happen, and what you do want to have happen. And let them understand that from you personally, not just guess that they think that's what you would have wanted, and not let them be drawn by any media or advertising to sway putting you in a place or handling your care needs in a way that you really had not envisioned. So think about those things and talk about them, and envision what you think your old age is going to look like and how you would like it to look like. My notes in here say talk about details, because honestly, as we get older, our life naturally shrinks. Okay, we're not running to the mall on the weekend, and we're not running to the movies on Saturday night, and we're not going to summer camp. Where our lives do get somewhat smaller, which is not a bad thing. But as a result, our life shrinks. The details become really important. Things like if you prefer rice instead of potatoes, or you'd rather have iced tea instead of orange juice, or whatever it is that you really find comforting or what you're used to, let that fiduciary, when I say fiduciary, I mean power attorney, healthcare surrogate, trusted contact, let them know what that is so that they'll know. Like, oh, she hates oatmeal. She much prefers cereal. Or I know it sounds silly, but truthfully, those things can be important. And when I say find a fiduciary, again, for those of you who fall into the category of maybe not having one or not having anyone at the ready that you consider a fiduciary, make that your job. Okay, you've got to find somebody. And putting that team together that we talked about, you might stumble across someone that may very well be able to fill that role. And then you want to sit down with that person and show them where your important papers are. In fact, I think we've got, it may be in the resources or at the end, a form that I have talked about back when I think we did the very first fiduciary. Oh no, it's a third episode, I believe it was, where I have a form that I've used for many years, and for you guys, I've called it Information for My Fiduciary. Now, again, there are estate planning books. In fact, the AARP has an estate planning kit, and I believe that's also going to be in your resources. But sometimes that kit can be a little intimidating, and it's kind of a bigger project than maybe some of us are comfortable or ready to handle. So this sort of list for my fiduciary is a more condensed list. And it's really something akin to think back to when you had children and you hired a babysitter. Okay. And you've got this list for the babysitter. It's just sort of the basic tasks and basic information that if something were to happen, here's what I want you to know, or here's who to call. Here's the neighbor. Here's the vet for the pet. Here's the name of my bank. It doesn't have to drill down to enormous detail with policy numbers or account numbers or values or any of that. This isn't an estate planning questionnaire. This is simply a template for your fiduciary or your babysitter to be able to use to make sure that they're aware of your concerns, your fears, and your comfort. So hopefully that's available to you today. And again, in that is things like, where's the key to the house? You know, what medications are you on? Again, in one of our episodes, we talked about what kit to have available to go to the hospital and what you should have on your refrigerator. That's good information. Just say it's on the refrigerator, my med list, my doctor, my emergency contacts, etc. The Professional Fiduciary Council, in fact, of Florida, was created for the very purpose of providing a resource for people who need a fiduciary. So other states also have developed and are developing that same resource. For those of you in and I saw some of you in California, matter of fact, California has a very well-developed professional fiduciary association. So those of you in California have thousands of professional fiduciaries available to talk to and to select. Arizona has also put in place a structure for regulating and providing professional fiduciaries. Florida, through our council, we have also begun the task of identifying and creating a resource for people to find a professional fiduciary, and other states too. So to find those people very often may come through your attorney. So again, remember back when we were talking about your team, your estate planning attorney may very well know of a Darby or a fiduciary in your area, or where to find perhaps a way to find a resource for that. If you need to find an estate planning attorney, which, you all may not have a current one, you might be sitting here thinking, man, I got to get my plan in place. I hope you are. To find an estate planning attorney, go to your local bar association first, and then you can also go to your local estate planning council. You can also go to a website called ACTEC, American Council College of Estate and Trust Council, ACTEC, and find people who are board certified in estate planning. And those attorneys not only will be able to update your documents, but they'll also be likely to have resources to people who might be able to serve as your fiduciaries. And remember, when you're doing your estate planning, and hopefully, in fact, 2 episodes ago, we did a demystifying estate planning, and the power of attorney is phenomenally important. In fact, it's the most important. It's so often the clients, when they come in, their biggest concern is, what do I do with my stuff when I die? How are my kids going to get rid of my stuff? Well, you know what? That is not the priority. The priority is you, and the priority is you from today until the day you pass. During this period of time is when that power of attorney is so valuable. It's during this period of time that healthcare surrogate is so valuable. At your passing, taking care of your estate and your stuff and your taxes, that's really like winding up a business. It's now that we are concerned, and now that we want to take care of you. So power of attorneys are super important. And in fact, that's the way that you can avoid ever being involved with a guardianship. Now, even the word guardianship gets people all scared, okay? Guardianships have gotten a lot of bad press, of course, but the truth of the matter is, all the times that I've ever served as someone's guardian, it's a savior for these people. It has, without a doubt, protected and brought these people into a safe environment and a safe place, and they're protected. So while you hear horrible things about guardianships, they really are a rescue for a lot of people. But it's not the ideal way. The best way, of course, is to have a power of attorney, someone you've already named that you know. If you leave yourself vulnerable to a guardianship, the court is going to appoint a guardian. So you really don't have any say as to who that person is going to be. So get your power of attorney in place now, and you won't have to worry about it. You also want to make sure that your fiduciary is up to speed on the bad guys that are out there. Do they know how to hire a right caregiver, a safe caregiver? Do they know how to get your house in a position that it's safe for having caregivers come in and out? So while I'm telling you to get a power of attorney, you also need to make sure that power of attorney is empowered to do what you need for them to do. And if they need help with that, of course, your attorney can help them, or they can talk to a professional fiduciary and get support and guidance on how to be a power of attorney and how to do it safely and do the right thing. So our third fear is the fear of not having anything left for my heirs. Now, if you don't have children, That would mean your charities, the people that mean a lot to you. It doesn't necessarily have to be your heirs. But my fear of not having a legacy or not having anything left. My advice to you is to think of it differently. To think of the best gift that you can give your heirs or your loved ones is to take care of yourself first. Take care of yourself first. That's why when you get on an airplane and they say if we crash, the masks come down, they say put it on your mouth first so that you can help any of your loved ones around you. Same thing goes with your children, surviving spouses, or heirs. They will be much better and much happier if you've taken care of your own affairs first. For example, I meet with clients in various ages, and very often young parents are so concerned about putting together a 529 plan for their kids, or the grandparents are all concerned about putting college funds together for their grandkids. And my advice, and I hope everyone here is hearing this, before you start taking care of grandkids or kids, make sure your own retirement is taken care of, whatever that is. And again, you've met with that trusted financial advisor. That person's going to tell you what that is. So until your own retirement is in a safe place, a nice box, a nice comforting retirement, then and only then should you start considering gifting or creating mechanisms to take care or provide for your grandkids or kids. And look at their lifestyles. Look at your own children's lifestyles and their income and ability. They may not be as needy or as expectant as you may think they are. And truthfully, most children are not expecting an inheritance. That's not what love and family is all about. I have a quote here that I thought was very meaningful for those of us who are aging and facing retirement and facing all of these decisions and tasks that we need to address. And here it is. This is Charles Darwin. It is not the strongest or the smartest that survives, but the one who best adapts to change. Aging is a lot of things, and change is a big part of it. Charles Darwin believed resilience and flexibility were key to thriving in a dynamic and unpredictable environment. While perhaps this is not a specific point, this speaks directly to the process of aging. So being flexible and being resilient is so important, and it's important in putting together that team, okay? That team is critical. So let's say you get that power of attorney. Your daughter, let's say, is your power of attorney or healthcare surrogate, or your son. When that person visits you, I want you to take that person to the places that need to know that they exist. So, for example, your daughter's visiting for spring break or over the summer or a holiday. Take your daughter to the bank and introduce her to who it is you deal with. Take your daughter to your law firm and introduce her to the attorney that does your work. Introduce her to your CPA. Introduce her to your bingo buddies. Introduce her to your walking group. Whoever it is that you interact with on a very regular basis, let them know that your daughter exists and that she's who they should call if something were to happen. I had a story not long ago. It was heartbreaking. This woman who was a hairdresser and this lady who had been coming to her for decades. She came in, and for whatever reason, that day she was not right. Something was very wrong. She couldn't even manage making change in her wallet. She was unable to really communicate. And what made the hairdresser so upset was not just that her client was in a desperate way, but she had no idea who to call. Here's a woman who's been coming to her for over 20 years. And she had no way to know who to call to help this person. So when you think about empowering your fiduciary, something that simple is important. So that when that person's visiting or on your little list, say, here's who I interact with. My bingo buddies or bunko buddies or hairdresser or someone who sees you on a regular basis so that they know who to call. And that hairdresser will know who to call. Now, lastly, I want to talk about some of the resources and books that I'd like for you to read. I'm not sure if we made it in there or not, but there is a book called Being Mortal, and it's fantastic. The gentleman that wrote it is a nationally recognized speaker and very sought after. Another book that I would encourage you to look at, and kind of goes along the Darwin theme, is The 100-Year Life. The 100-Year Life. In fact, if today, if you met a young person, a 10-year-old child, the average age that that child is going to attain is going to be 104. That's the average age of a 10-year-old child today. So being flexible in their lifetime is even going to be more important, because think of the years of work that they're going to be putting in. Think of the years of their aging that they're going to have to be dealing with. So being flexible, where we are today is different than where our parents were today. So being open and being aware of some of the tools that we need to put in place will make your aging and make your path and make your decisions much more comfortable and less stressful. So I'm hoping that I've addressed what I have thought of and what I have heard over the years as being the three biggest fears. Am I going to run out of money? Am I going to be a burden on my family or friends? And am I going to have anything left for my heirs? So I hope I've covered that in a pretty substantial way. I haven't been able to read the questions, so I'm happy, Chandra or Michelle, if any questions came up that I can talk about, let's take that on.
So this is probably the first time in Aging Academy history where we haven't gotten a ton of questions, just some asked for links to items in the post-event email. So let's go ahead and open it up. Don't unmute yourself, but if you do have a question for Darby or just want to share your experience or your comments, feel free to put those in the chat.
So while we're waiting for a question to pop up, I'm going to tell you two more things I want you to watch. These are PBS episodes called Frontline. Okay, you probably have heard of that series. One is called Being Mortal, and the other one is called Living Old. And if those don't scare you into getting your team together, but at the same time, it's also, they've got a lot of comforting news as well. But it can't hurt you. The more information you get, the more experiences people share with you, the better and more confident you can move forward. They're great.
Yeah, so there was one comment that all folks, not just old folks, should wear dog tags with phone numbers and the name of next of kin.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure. And along those same lines, everyone's got their cell phones. You can make sure that in case of emergency is set up on your cell phone. And Robin just said, have info in your wallet. I think the driver's license bureau also has an emergency contact that you can have listed with your driver's license.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we covered a lot of that in one of our episodes about where and what to put your emergency information and the DMV and on your driver's license, etc. And also to distribute that once you get your plan together. Let's say you do have your power of attorney. You want to provide that to your financial advisor. You want to provide that to your doctor. You want to provide, actually a copy to these individuals so that if and when something were to happen, they know who to call. So yeah, that's
And
really important.
you got lots of folks listening to you because a lot of them have said, I keep a card with essential info in my wallet and my car dashboard. They have an ICE in their cell phone. So here's a question from JA. What about the fear of trusting the wrong people who then drain your resources? Even credentialed people can scam the elderly.
Well, that is exactly right. And that is a huge fear, JA. And Sandy, yes, these are recorded, by the way. And if you go to agingacademy.com, you can watch all the past episodes. And please comment and subscribe and all of that. They're on YouTube. And let Michelle know that you love these and that we want to do them next year, because I certainly do. But yeah, JA, that's a big thing. And we did have an episode actually on scams and fraud and vulnerability. I think it was called, I think my brother's the power of attorney and he's stealing my mother's money, because sometimes that fraud and scam is coming from your own family members. So yes, that is a big concern. And that's why it's so important to pick the right fiduciary and to have some safeguards in place. And in fact, that is a very common concern. And we can, in fact, next year, delve into that a little more and talk about perhaps some tools, strategies to put in place, not only for yourself, but for your fiduciaries, because they may not know either, right? Because a lot of times the fiduciary steps in, they've never done this before either. But yes, that is a huge concern. And sadly, it happens more often than you'd really want, of course. But yeah, next year, we're going to be talking about, trust a little more deeply. Do I need one? If I do, why and what they are? Yeah, cell phones, yep, can get locked. There's a lot going on here.
The best part, though, is that all these folks are informed and they are checking out the Aging Academy episodes to learn more. So, Michelle, do you have any other closing words for us? A little tidbits on our next episodes, where to catch all these good resources? Because I think everyone really needs the resources this month.
Yes, absolutely. As I mentioned before, we are going to send a post-event email a little bit later today that is going to have hyperlinks to all of the resources that Darby spoke about. I think Chandra and I were posting them in the chat. It's not always easy to click on those links and listen to what's going on. So don't worry, those are coming. And also in that email, there are going to be two other links. One of them is going to be a survey. Let us know what you thought about today's session or the series as a whole. There is an opportunity to share open-ended responses. So if you have ideas for future sessions, you can share those there. Also, just let us know your thoughts. Our last session of the 2024 calendar year is going to be on October, I have it in my notes, on Thursday, October 24th. And that's where we're going to guide you through the top 5 essential steps to navigate aging with confidence. So we're basically going to take all of the first 9 sessions and compile all the tidbits of information based off of the questions and feedback that we've received through surveys and emails for people who have joined the sessions or watched the recordings. And so Darby's going to put it all in a nice, neat little package for you. So that next one in October is one you definitely don't want to miss. Now, if you missed any of those other recordings, again, you can find those on the Aging Academy website. All of the past sessions are already posted there. Today's session, it'll take a little while for Zoom to send us the recording, get that cleaned up, but we'll have that posted soon as well. Big thank you to all of you for joining us, but especially for Darby and Chandra for being a part of Aging Academy and bringing this to AARP members and friends across the country. Every time I join one of these, I learn something new. And honestly, that's what this is all about. Not only am I learning something new from you, but I usually learn something new from our viewers, from people who are sharing their experiences, their lessons learned, their best practices through the chat. And so big thanks to all of you. It really does take a village. So I hope that you will join us again next time. I'm going to check the chat, make sure that we didn't miss any last minute questions. Darby, any last minute words from you before we sign off for today?
Well, again, I hate to repeat myself again, but I can't tell you, Michelle, how grateful I am for AARP coming up with this idea. And it just is so makes my heart smile that I can help people, because this is not rocket science. It's stuff you wouldn't have thought of unless you've had to deal with it. And so I am so happy to be able to share it with people. And I really appreciate these wonderful comments. So thank you. Thank you very much. And I look forward to our future sessions.
Absolutely. Wishing everyone a wonderful rest of your day. Hope to see you next time.
Save the chat.